Somehow that happened. Hello, hi, welcome. So today is gonna be hopefully short. Today's gonna be a hopefully short reading. At least this one is. I think I want to go through the. Oh gosh. I think I want to go through the double majors prime use tarot and use the court cards: knights mutable, kings fixed, queens cardinal, and then element is the element, and see what's in between the cards for each sign. So, like for Aries, it would be what's in between the two queens of wands, and so on and so forth. But today, I noticed who are these two? The Three of Swords and the Ace of Swords. I'm using the Line Strider Tarot to clarify, the mini Line Strider Tarot, because I felt drawn to them. This is interesting. This is almost making me think of depression and anxiety. And it's like the Three of Swords. It's like depression is the association with the past, anxiety is the association with the future. But then this Ace of Swords is some kind of realization in the now moment, or a realization of the power of the now moment. And this realization feels like it's about it's almost like it's about realizing that something in the present is different than the past. Like something of the past has already been worked through and resolved and healed. And because of that, the future is also brighter than the worser case scenario that we may be thinking of. And then the Eight of Wands is behind that. So as soon as we get that realization, then it feels like spring can really spring because of the deer here. Feels like there's a quickness to the. I don't know. Anyway, so today I was looking for. I don't even remember what. Oh, I was going to charge my phone. I was going to plug up my phone. And I'm just giving these a good shuffle because they're not the easiest to shuffle. Tiny cards. I noticed that a gloss, which means 9 times out of 10 that there's a card that jumped out of the deck at some point and is now ready to reveal itself. And today it was two cards from the Witch's Tarot. It's the Magician with the Eight of Pentacles in reverse, which is interesting because the last time I was live, the King of Swords came out in a space of observation because there's something that the King of Swords didn't know, but it wanted to know, or it knew that there was a validity in it. And so the Page of Cups was feeling its way through into the World card. The King of Wands was like using his staff to break Earth, almost to see, like using his life force energy to connect to the life force of Earth and to find these spots where, like a new spring is going to sort of form in the middle of a desert to create an oasis almost. And then with the Pentacles, that one, we didn't see a Court of Pentacles. It was just like, well, we saw the Page of Pentacles. The Page of Pentacles, after the Four of Pentacles was like holding on to something, the Page of Pentacles was like releasing it so that it could grow. And so that, the forces of nature that already tend to everything else could tend to that Page of Pentacles as Pentacle as well. So, hey, Janelle, how you doing? Ah, well, thanks. I'm happy that you're happy. Um, I still haven't like done my physical activity for today, but I wanted to come on sooner to do this. Um, and then the King of Swords was sort of like standing witness, basically. And so I had that thought yesterday And then I was like, oh, I have a community board now, so I could just make a community post and explain it. And that's why I opened it with like, I love this space because now I can do that. And I've done that maybe once or twice before. Hey, Kirsty. Glad to see you too. How are you? How's everyone doing today? So I'm going to pull before, or not before and oh, I guess since I said it, I could. I'll pull before and after the Magician and the Eight of Pentacles, and then I'll just pull cards as well. Um, oh, that's why I started talking about it, because the King of Swords was observing and witnessing, and it feels like the King of Swords is about to come into a new knowing and a new understanding. Like it's something that the King of Swords acknowledges about others. That's why he was watching the Hangman in the tree and observing the King of Wands. But it's a difference between like knowing that something works and knowing how/why something works. And with the King of Swords, there's this energy of, especially since it's the King of Swords, that once we get an understanding of the how and the why, we can engage it with a little bit more conscious effort, I guess. It's almost like when we understand the basics, then we begin to think of some advanced applications. And it's kind of like that energy. But with these two, like, I don't know if this is something that like we were working on that reaches a sudden conclusion, or if there was something that, or if it could be like a pivot. I don't know, but that's why I'm gonna pull the cards to see, you know. So, bottom of the deck is the World and Judgment, the World, Judgment, and the Ace of Cups with the Wheel of Fortune and the Page of Pentacles and the Eight of Swords. Okay, we'll stop here. The World, Judgment, Ace of Cups, Wheel of Fortune. So the World and Judgment feels like a justice energy, but it's like large scale justice to the point where it's like the world. And then we see specifically, I'm noticing Virgo and or not Virgo, Scorpio and Aquarius in this world card. Taurus and Leo aren't immediately jumping to my eye. So if it'll focus. There you go. See Aquarius and Scorpio. And then there's the infinity sign above the world card, the head of the world card, the same that's above the Magician, of course. And in the Wheel of Fortune from the Prime Use Tarot, I found 3 out of 4 of the books. I had to look to see. I found all 4 of 4. The 4th one is hidden behind the title, The Wheel of Fortune. The 3rd one is in like an obscure corner, but there were 2 books that immediately jumped out to me. And I was talking to my journey buddy yesterday. I almost came live last night at like 1 or 2 in the morning because I talked to her later. And every time I talk to her, I just feel like invigorated after the conversation. And I'm like, but anyway, brain, sorry. Oh gosh. Yeah. So the 2 books that I saw when I was going through the deck to show her the card, because she had said something that made me think of that card. How the wheel was breaking and it was this opportunity to basically establish something new. I saw the other Wheel of Fortune and I went to look at what 2 animals or creatures correspond to the zodiac signs whose books I did see, and it was Aquarius and Scorpio in the top. So those were the 2 books that were most immediately available. And then with the 9 of Swords and the 7 of Swords or whatever, like blah blah whatever. But anyway, so I guess it's just interesting that I see those 2 again. With this Judgment, Judgment is interesting because of the mask that it's wearing. It makes me think of a like an oni mask, like a Japanese oni mask, but it's actually an angel. So it's almost like, how are we interpreting this? How do we interpret the closing or opening of a cycle? How do we interpret this Eight of Pentacles being in reverse? Is it one of those, like, my life's work has been ruined and blah blah blah, like I spent so much time and energy and effort on this and now it's all gone to waste? And do we almost see it in that a little bit more negative of a light? Or can we see, it's almost like a tower, can we see, hey David, how you doing today? Can we see like why it happened, why it occurred, and can we be open to how it leads us forward, or how we pivot, how we transition moving forward to something that is potentially a lot more fulfilling? I mean, it's the Ace of Cups and the Wheel of Fortune after these two, so it's like really good. It has the potential to be really good. Or do we just sort of like pick up the pieces and rebuild the same thing that we were sort of doing before? Do we just resume? Do we start over? Judgment here, it feels like it's the way that we see something that determines how we interact with it, which determines how we move it forward. And then, of course, it's the Ace of Cups with the Wheel of Fortune. And the Ace of Cups in this deck is looking at the Wheel of Fortune. What's interesting about this Wheel of Fortune, and it feels like it ties into, um, this feels like it ties into the Three of Swords with the Ace of Swords, that depression about the depression that's the result of occurrences of the past and anxiety for a future that is yet to be experienced. Um, but again, you see how and maybe you see it, I don't. How it's only like Aquarius and Scorpio here, but in the Wheel of Fortune, we clearly see Aquarius, Scorpio, Taurus, and Leo. And there's the Ace of Cups. The Ace of Cups is looking right at it. This Ace of Cups is interesting. It makes me think of the Four of Cups. Hey, Holly, how you doing? It makes me think of the Four of Cups in the Wild Unknown Tarot. How there's the rat that's like covering three out of four of the cups, but then its head is over the fourth cup, because the cat is also sort of like sitting above the cup, but cats like naturally chase off mice, or they're like natural enemies. But I guess instead of it being, and it's like, if mice can sort of symbolize like anxieties or things that eat away at us, like as one singular individual thing, it's not that big of a deal. But as these occurrences continue to happen, they sort of compound and they become bigger than they actually are. Or they can cause problems that sort of like become many-fold. But with the cat standing guard over the Ace of Cups, it's almost like that compounding doesn't happen. There's something about this, and I think it's probably related to this judgment that we make, that's able to like address anxieties or worries or like old depressive thoughts or whatever as they arise. It's able to like take care of it, take care of it, take care of it. And this could be something that is reflexively built into our spirit or into our soul, if that makes sense. Where it's like, because of the world card here, if we've already established a certain habit or a certain pattern of working through things, facing certain things, like, not, if we've become more attentive and aware within ourselves, then as things arise, like, we naturally address them so that they don't pile up. And so it's almost like it's a byproduct of the work that we've done in that way, or the way that we've healed, or the way that we handle face address things, that leads to this Wheel of Fortune where we can clearly see the full picture. Those two birds at the top also make me think of the Three of Swords, how one was like focused looking back and the other one was looking forward. And then there was that third bird on the Ace of Swords that gave some kind of context to the now or the present moment. But here it's almost like it has a greater sense of like totality, or it can see the greater picture as a whole, something like that. And because it is with the Ace of Cups, it might be like seeing the reason why, not necessarily even seeing the reason why it's happening, but it's seeing how it can use this series of events, or how it can use this. Um, it is a series of events, but it's like a series of occurrences. It's like this thing happened, and then this thing happened, and then this thing happened, and then this thing happened. It's almost like the Ace of Cups is coming in to play again with that Ace of Swords energy to partially see the new path that opens up, but to also like feel it. So it becomes these like these two senses sort of come online, if not in addition to two others, because in the Wheel of Fortune again we see all four. And that's what the Wheel of the Year was about. The Wheel of the Year was about, instead of like using the books, instead of using the information, we're tapping into how we're like led and guided intuitively with the cups, intellectually, analytically with the swords, practically with the earth, and through like passion and desire with the fire. Anyway, um, what was I saying? Yeah, it feels like with this Wheel of Fortune, we have like a more complete picture, which is gorgeous. Which is gorgeous. Oof. So then it's the Page of Pentacles. It's gonna be what it's gonna be. I wanted this to be shorter, but I'm not gonna take too long. With the Page of Pentacles and the Eight of Swords, I think the one thing that I feel like this is just it's not a warning. It's a lot softer than a warning. It's something that cautions us to be mindful that we don't overly prioritize the things that we see when it comes to manifestation, or when it comes to something manifesting, right? It's like if you do whatever you do to manifest one day, and then you wake up the next day and everything isn't immediately completely different, it's to not get discouraged. Because with it being the element of earth, some things have to be seeded and some things take time. It's like they grow. And even if you get it in one way, even if it is this large change that happens relatively quickly, I'm tempted to believe that it would still grow beyond that, especially since it's the element of earth. But it's like, don't allow the things that you don't see to so easily make you believe that things aren't happening. Tapping, like, that's why all four aces are there. It's this combined, and it's like, just because it's not there in the pinnacle doesn't mean that the sword and the cup and the fire don't feel it. The earth might be catching up. So now I'm going to, here's the Magician. The Magician is in between the Ace of Wands and the Three of Pentacles. And I'm going to put the Magician back in the deck. I'm just going to keep out the clarifiers. I'm going to try to make this relatively quick. I also want to finish there have been a few times when I've portobello's, peppers, and spinach. Ooh, I'm hungry. What was I saying? Oh yeah, I've been wanting to finish that one room series. There's been a few times where I almost got on here and I started it, but I might just have to um, do it. It might not be in the exact same format as the first half of this one. It's also been quite a bit of time. So the Five of Cups and the Queen of Wands is before and after this Eight of Pentacles. And I'm going to put the Queen of. No, I'm going to put the Eight of Pentacles back into the deck. So the Magician is the Ace of Wands and the Three of Pentacles. What I like about this, or what's interesting about this, it's almost like the Ace of Wands can be a little. It's just, it feels like it's playing on the shadow of the Court of Wands, or it's playing on when there's too much fire, when we become too much about like what we desire and passions to the point where either we become greedy, or we can become lustful or prideful or whatever. It's like pick one of the seven, right? I feel like fire probably isn't necessarily associated with like sloth, but like gluttony, yeah, can be. Out of the seven, I feel like sloth would be the only one that I don't necessarily see fire leading to, unless that's what our desire is. It's to not do anything. And then very much so, yeah. um, but it feels like this Ace of Wands energy, it plays a very important role, and it plays a very important part. It makes me think of like all of the, like the ego is the enemy, and to desire anything or like to manifest something, then it's don't desire it or don't want it, because if you're chasing it, then like you don't have it or whatever. And again, it's like to an extreme, yes, but the wand is also one of the tools, and it might be one of the tools that's the most neglected out of the four, because of how easily we as humans can be enraptured or enwrapped by like our desires, because it is so easy for the ego to like spin out and then override like common sense and override our hearts and our minds and other things. But it's like, just because that was our tendency doesn't mean that the element itself, or it doesn't mean that that part in and of itself is necessarily bad. But that's the thing about the magician as well. The magician knows how to use his tools, or her tools, their tools. The magician knows how to use their tools. And then the Three of Wands is here. It fell out onto the floor, which is the card of expectation. But yeah, it's like with the magician, it's like utilize every tool that you have at your disposal, and like your ego is also a tool. Your desires and the things that you want is also a tool. You don't necessarily have to be without those things to live a spiritually balanced and whole life. But again, it's just that like it can be very difficult to utilize that element. And maybe it's not for everybody, but it can be difficult to utilize that element and not like overutilize it to the point where like the cup, the water in the cup evaporates, the earth is scorched, and there's this explosion in the mind because how oxygen and air feeds fire. But you can also starve a fire with air. If you pump a lot of like carbon dioxide into it, then it's not going to combust as much as it would if it were oxygen. So it's like air can go either way. Can be a tool. I get that's funny. And then the Eight of Pentacles in reverse, we have the Five of Cups with the Queen of Wands. This Five of Cups is an owl. The Queen of Wands has her black cat with her. It's interesting. It feels like the Queen of Wands has this staff of light. Because look at it. Let's see if you can see it. You see her staff? There we go. Let's see. I think this like helps things focus a little bit. Maybe not. I don't know. But it looks like she has a staff of light. And because she has a staff of light, there's this thing about light, dark, and shadow. It feels like light is, darkness is, but shadow is not. Like light is absolute, dark is absolute, and shadow is relative. That's why it's like if you bring something closer to the source of light, its shadow gets like darker and like bigger. And as you remove it, then if you get far enough from that source of light, then it doesn't cast a shadow at all. And so it's been this thing that's been percolating through my brain. That's like, since light is and darkness is, they remain at constants. So if you move darkness closer to light, it's like it will retain its shape and its size, and it will retain its relative properties. If it were shadow, again, like it would elongate as you get closer to the light and it would shrink as you get further, but like light and darkness are more absolute. And I say that because of the black cat. The black cat, I've heard, sort of represents the Queen of Wands. It represents her ego, and it represents her shadow, and she has a relationship with it where she can proudly display it because it doesn't control her. It doesn't rule her. It has no dominion over her. But it's one of the things that makes her so attractive because she has balanced that light dark polarity duality within her in a way that, I don't know, it's almost like if you look at the yin and yang symbol, but if you start to like spin it, then it becomes this like magnet. It like attracts things, almost like a vortex or a whirlpool. It like brings things in. But if you have either piece of it that isn't moving, then it brings stagnancy to the entire thing. But anyway, there's something about how like the tip of her wand and the cat right there sort of symbolize the balance of that polarity within her. And then this Five of Cups. This Five of Cups is the most puzzling or intriguing part of this. I mean, if that's everything that the Queen of Wands symbolizes, and the Five of Cups is grief, because it's like in the Five of Cups, there are cups traditionally, and typically when you see the Five of Cups, there are cups that are upright, and there are cups that have been like poured out and spilled out. And it feels like with this Eight of Pentacles in reverse, there's this inability because of the Five of Cups with this Queen of Wands. It's almost like there's an inability to put certain things in a perspective that makes them helpful, useful, or beneficial. And it kind of goes back to the Judgment card that was with the World, where it's like it's the way that we see it, it's the judgment that we cast on this series of occurrences that makes us sort of interact with them in a way that makes a certain outcome more likely. King of Swords, there he is. Five of Wands. These are just like overall. King of Swords and Five of Wands. There's something here. I think it plays on that Queen of Wands, Five of Cups a little bit. It also plays on this. I guess it's just the theme or the message. Um, the King of Swords has a certain prudence and a certain wisdom about him. It's almost like King Solomon and how he would like settle cases. I think it was King Solomon, the one with like the baby that had two mothers, right? And it's almost like with the Five of Wands, it's these impossible disputes. It's these situations where there is no victor. And so it's incredibly difficult to pass judgment. But something about, and it's funny because it plays on that detached nature of the King of Swords. This is one of those instances where like it's better to have a logical approach than to be so like emotionally surging that we get lost in it, because it feels like there's some thread of harmony in the mass of discord and chaos here that the King of Swords would be able to see and then to like pluck or strum. And it makes me think of, I don't remember what the reading was, but I think I used the Tarot Apocalypsis because it mentioned a sitar. Maybe it wasn't the Tarot Apocalypsis. And it was like, we think that sitars, I think it was a liar. It was the liar. Um, it was like, we think that liars are, there's this conception, I don't know how true or accurate it is, but in the context of the reading, there's this conception that liars were plucked and played like harps, but then it was like in reality they were played like guitars. And so we're trying to like harp something that's supposed to be like you know and then there was another card that came out that talked about life in some way, and it tied into it where it's like, when we approach life we try to have this super methodical, like pluck this string, that string, elegant harp, like whatever, when it's supposed to be, I had a dream that I was playing a guitar and there were like three chords that I knew, and one of the strings was like broken AF, but it still made sound. Someone was like, "Whoa, you play guitar?" I was like, "No," but I know if I put, because from my how I what I know of guitars, it's like you use your one hand to position your fingers on the strings in a certain way, like way down here, like upstream or downstream. I guess that would be upstream if the sound is made downstream. So you position something upstream and then you strum it downstream, and it produces the sound based on the configuration of the fingers up here. And there were like three different ways that I knew how to like do whatever upstream, and I'm just like strumming and it made noise, and I was like, oh, okay, it sounds like I might know, but I don't. I know that if I position my fingers in these three different ways they'll produce these sounds, and I can put the sounds that I know how to make together to make something cohesive. And maybe it's like that here, but it's like I don't know if there's something, it probably is something jumbled upstream, and it feels like it's related to the way, it's almost like there's this disconnect, or there's an incongruency somewhere between the thought or the idea of a thing and the actual living of it. There's something that hasn't been incorporated, or we're being asked. I was going to see if I made a spread for the capital I versus the EYE. That energy's been coming out a lot, but it's been like behind the scenes, because the capital I versus the EYE was very about like, when we understand fire as fire and water as water, air as air, and earth as earth, then we begin to see how the elements play with each other. We begin to see how fire can also be water, can also be air, can also be earth. How water can also be fire, can also be air, can also be earth. And when we understand each element as it is individually, and then when we understand the elements and how they play together, or how they can mimic one another, or how they can pull on strengths, or how the elements themselves can almost change phases in a way that they appear as another element, or they take on attributes that we associate with the other elements. When we get all of that down, then comes an even deeper understanding. Then comes a true understanding of like energy, or a true understanding of like what Akash, or ether. where we understand the energy in its rawest, purest form before it even plinkos itself into an element, or before it even constricts itself or as a before it even becomes an element, because all energy is one before it breaks down into the elemental, before it breaks down into the material and the physical. It's like we can use that, and it feels like that's what the King of Swords is doing now, as the King of Swords is observing the King of Wands and the Hanged Man, and as things on earth are sort of just happening. And that's why it's like, with everything that the King of Swords has observed from those things, now in the space of this Five of Wands, where things are mostly chaotic, and so we do the best that we can to have some. And it's not to say that our understanding, again, who am I but some dude, right, who just turned 30. There are a lot of people who have lived a lot more life than me. There are a lot of people that have had a lot more experiences, blah blah blah, whatever. It's not to downplay myself at all. This is just me realizing, recognizing that, at least in this incarnation, I'm still fairly young and relatively inexperienced. But to my mind, it's like, I forgot what I was even about to say. Oh, with like the laws of like manifestation and the laws of like all of this, the hermetic principles or whatever. It's not to say that they're incorrect, but it's almost like, again, it's almost like those are, even if we treat them as foundational, um what's keystone, what's, it's like a column, foundational columns that support how we see reality. It's like those columns are how reality manifests in some way. But it's like there are advanced applications, or there are implications. Implications, is implication a word? There are applications and implications far more advanced that sort of like arise from them. But they're more advanced almost in ways that they're more, I want to say, primordial. It's like we use this understanding to fine tune our ability to manifest or whatever. But it's like, as it extends out further, it also runs a lot deeper. So it's almost like we find these things that those different pillars are built upon themselves in a way. And I've read the Kabbalion back when I was like early, and someone was like, read the Kabbalion. And I was like, oh my gosh. Surprised I like actually read it, because I'm not a huge reader. I like, I guess that's a lie. For things that I love, I'll read them quick. I will devour them. But for things that I'm like, I don't really care about, like, I have to really be like engaged with the material, and then I'll read it. Like, and I love reading, but I don't do it because there aren't a lot of things that I love to read, I guess. I don't know. Anyway, and I think that was pretty good. But even still, I don't know if it's this King of Swords energy. It's just like, it's an opportunity to take an understanding even deeper. And like with a whole bunch of stuff that was offered, especially at that time, a lot of it was so encoded and so um, encrypted and like so metaphorical, that it's like, if you were to take it at face value, then you would see one thing. But when you go a lot deeper, then you see like this greater truth that was sort of hidden. So there's like a limited effectiveness of those things, but it's only limited because it's like, if you really knew, then it, like, it's even more expansive or whatever than that. um where am I going with this? What am I talking about? I'm already 40 minutes in. This wasn't supposed to be about this, but I guess it was, because with the Eight of Pentacles in reverse and the Magician upright, I don't know if I mentioned it. I think I did at first. It's like, I don't know if this is something that like we're working on that just takes off, or the divine is like, okay, we'll finish this for you, we'll finish that for you, so like it gets completed and we don't have to work on it anymore. But this might also be I said Hayes, who was a mentor and a friend, a video, and I was like flipping my hair. It's getting long enough. I'm low key obsessed. I love it. But anyway, uh, I feel like that just brought me so much genuine joy and laughter. Thank you, Holly. Wow, I'm losing my train of thought. Oh, it's just like I don't know if it could also be us getting a deeper understanding. And one of the things that has been coming to my mind, one of the things that I've been prompted slash guided slash curious about recently, and by recently I mean like within the past week or so, is how I manifest things in particular. Because there are certain things that trigger a certain frequency within me, and it's almost like there are certain things that there are certain triggers that it's almost like, I guess, like my internal lion, like the lion spread, and how it's like principally this or it's principally that. There are certain principles that my soul holds like very firmly, and if I see anything that triggers one of those principles or that lies close to one of those principles, it's almost like this manifesting channel opens that I can use, and that I know like I'm using it. Like when I'm using it, I know I'm using it. And then I'm like, if I get off my high horse, it's like, or is this just my knowing? Is it my knowing, my intuitive knowing that this thing is going to change or that something is going to happen here? But I've just been like, like, what is that? And can I engage with that? Can I interact with that? Because for me, almost like Rumpelstiltskin, it's like it's not, there have been a few cases in my life where I've known that certain things were for me. But that didn't require any more effort than me to just like apply for whatever or to show up for whatever. And I know it's mine this time. I know it's for me. I just know it. The knowing is strong in this one. But when it comes to like things outside of me, it's like I can activate. Hey Perry, how you doing? Um, can activate like the divine, the spark of the divine that I'm created in. It's really good at working on behalf of others. Like if there's someone in my life who wants something sort of significant, or like if they're going through something, sometimes like it'll activate and I'm like, this is gonna happen. And then it happens. But I can't do that. I don't do that for me. And it's not that I necessarily should. It's just like curious. You know what I mean? Anyway, I feel like this got whatever. And I feel like when I tell people about it, they don't necessarily like get it. And that's fine. I'm not looking for anybody to get it, but I guess it would be nice if somebody got it. You know what I mean? So I could be like, what is this? But I think too, that's why certain things don't necessarily, like, that's why I don't interact with or get the same whatever from like certain other things. Because for me, it's more about like, it's that, it's it's this. It's more about like, I know how to position my fingers so that when life comes in and starts like strumming like crazy, it's like you move the fingers up here, because this is going to happen whether you do it or not. In certain things, like life is going to transpire, things are going to happen, this is happening, but we go upstream of the process and we do this in timing with the strumming so that it produces something melodious and harmonious and beautiful, rather than it just being like nails on a chalkboard screeching. You know what I mean? Anyway, And I don't think I can do a reading. I was like, "Huh, what are these different chords? Maybe I could. Could I build a spread? I don't know. Maybe not. That might be. Sometimes I try to build spreads that incorporate whatever, but doing well in this moment. Aw. Well, I'm glad to hear it, Perry. Seven of Wands. What the world? With the Six of Wands at the bottom of the deck. We go from the five to the seven to the six. I'm like, this card looks so chaotic. But the one thing is like, so there's this snapping at, I don't know if it's snapping at the goat or the bird, but the goat like got on top of these birds and it feels like it's about to like jump. Like the goat is leapfrogging, and the birds, the first two birds, the first pair of birds was in the Three of Swords. The second pair was in the Wheel of Fortune. What is happening in this card? Let's see. What's happening in this? Whoa, what was that? What was that? I don't even know if y'all saw that. We got a, oh my gosh. We got some acrobats. Oh, it flipped over. Okay. we got, ooh. Oh, as I was talking about the goat leapfrogging off of the back of these birds, we got some acrobats in the deck apparently. The Queen of Swords. I don't think this other one flipped all the way over. No. Bottom of the deck is the Four of Wands. Four of Wands, Six of Wands, Ten of Wands. Queen of Swords. I'm looking at her sword. Let me look at his sword. Something interesting is happening in the Court of Swords, which I guess I wouldn't be surprised about if there is this understanding that we're coming into. Because like there's a difference between, again, it's like there's a difference between us knowing that something works and us knowing why something works and us knowing how something works. And it feels like this knowing that how and why, but I don't think, well, I guess that's why the hangman was there. Because I was going to say, I don't think the sword will take us any farther. It's like there's something that's, it feels like it's on the tip of your tongue or something that you can almost recall. But the brain itself isn't enough. The mind itself isn't enough to reach out, but it's part of the bridge to that understanding. And then we had what the world, the Wheel of Fortune, the magician, like all four tools are at your disposal. Utilize everything. If you leave even one of these out, you're not going to get a complete picture because every aspect, every tool plays a part. And they all result, they all come from this thing. I feel like I should just quit. I guess, I mean, we are in like eclipse season, maybe. I feel like it's been a string of those, like, what is this? What does this mean? What are we getting at kind of readings? And I'm just like, I'm like, okay. So remember how I talked about the Queen of Wands having like her wand of light? Like that feels like light taking the shape of a wand that she works with. Well, then the King of Swords comes out observing this Five of Wands. Oh gosh. And maybe that's why the King of Swords can settle this dispute in fire. Because his sword has taken on the element of fire. He's on the floor now. Goodness. I want to keep this all in the same area. I don't know why my laptop was in sport mode. That's why it was getting so warm. Maybe laptop was like, "Ooh, we doing work today." Here it is. Goodness. Oh. I need to wrap this up so I can go to the gym. My mama gonna be like, "You trying to go now?" So it's like the King of Swords. His sword has taken on some quality of light that the Queen of Wands had or has. I don't know if the King of Swords is like expanding. It almost reads like the King of Swords is expanding his dominion, but he's not. Because the King of Swords doesn't claim anything from the King and Queen of Wands, nor is he claiming anything of the King and Queen of Pentacles. The King of Swords, again, there's a really strong humility around the Sword family right now. The last time the King of Swords came out when the King of Swords came out in the Prime Muse Tarot, it was him standing tall, standing proud, standing very like sternly and courageously in all of his glory, facing someone else, like open to hearing what they have to say. It wasn't him being like stubborn and combative and whatever. Like he can stand in full pride of who he is, but also be open to listening. There's a certain beauty of like a balance here that again for a lot of people, or at least for a while, it may have been difficult to attain or to hold. And so it's almost like because it was so easy for humanity to be consumed by their egos, we just like demonize the ego. It's almost like if there is a species of plant that can be super invasive because it just grows, it's like don't even plant it in your garden, because the herbs and the fruits and the vegetables and everything else in your garden, they will be suffocated. They'll be choked by this plant because it just grows. So it's better off to not even have it, even if the plant is beneficial. But it's like if you can find a way to like contain this plant so that it doesn't spread, it would be an excellent addition. It will accent and accentuate anything and everything. It's almost like a wonder whatever. But again, it's like and I think Libra had something like that. When I ran through, I think I read through the zodiac, and it was for Libra. There was something that was really beneficial for Libra, but it wasn't something that Libra could contain. It was vinegar. I used the Wild Unknown Alchemy cards, and Libra got vinegar. Something was like vinegar. It's really good. It's beneficial, but it's overpowering. It's the nature, something about the nature of that thing to expand. And so when it can't be contained, it becomes very harmful. It becomes very invasive. But if you can contain it, it's extremely beneficial. And there's something about that ability to contain it now, or there's something about the ability to put it into perspective now, that it can play its part. And because it's playing its part, then things like the Wheel of Fortune gets supercharged. And it's like, that's the yin and the yang that spins, and then it like becomes this vortex that just like pulls things in. And there will be some things that are repelled, of course, but it's that energy. But if either side of it is like stuck, or if any part of it doesn't move, none of it moves. It's like it doesn't even necessarily, okay, well, maybe it moves slowly, but it feels like there's a certain amount of movement that you'll get. But when it comes time for that piece to move, since it doesn't move, that's when everything locks up and stops. But anyway, the King of Swords is able to take on, because he understands how fire works now, the King of Swords can apply that fire to the situation to resolve this. The reason why I bring this up is because the Queen of Swords, her sword is like it's covered in ivy, but it doesn't feel like that's because her sword is like the ivy is coming from the sword. It's not like a sword that was left somewhere and then over time ivy grew around it. It's like, no. Just like the King of Swords is getting his sword to embody or incorporate the element of fire to become this flaming sword, the Queen of Swords is taking on some element of the pentacles to become this sword of like life. And in here it's interesting because it's like the one thing it almost makes me think of in the Troth card, Gar did come out in the Lafruma yesterday. When I was like, well, what does a promise to Odin mean? It means nothing. And maybe I shouldn't. But it's like the reason why promises to Odin mean nothing is because Odin is so consumed by his own goals. Odin only works to accomplish what he wants to get done. And it wasn't like his energy isn't one that necessarily cares how it affects other people. And it's almost one of those mindsets. It's like for anyone who thinks that you have to like step on people to get anywhere in life or whatever, it's like, well, if the tables were flipped, that they would do the same thing to me to make it ahead in life. They would backstab and betray me to get ahead. So, I'm just the person who saw it first. And it's like, okay, well, maybe in your reality, yeah. I'm not gonna say no, because there are people who do that and there are people who work with people who do that, and it's like they're friends or whatever until they become anyway. It's not about the promises of Odin. But that's why when it comes to Odin, it's like there's nothing about his mythology, there's nothing about his story that ever really served or benefited anybody else, truly. It's like it was all about what he wanted, and it was all about him getting what he wanted through sometimes any means necessary. And it's like, I don't know, it's just not something that I personally resonate with into. So that's why I'm like, F Odin. Anyway. So the Seven of Wands did come out, and I said, why the Seven of Wands? And then we have the acrobatic cards. This Queen of Swords. So anyway, like her sword is able to take on the element of life. That's what I was going to say. And it's interesting because usually the sword is something that like cuts down life. The sword is something that ends life. That's why I was thinking of Gare, because it's the spear that was used for fishing that has become a weapon. But it makes me think of Sashomaru and Inuyasha. It makes me think of Sashomaru and Inuyasha. Like Sashomaru was like this fearsome demon who was like very ruthless, and he has a little half demon brother Inuyasha, and Inuyasha gets this sword that can like cut through anything. Sashomaru gets this sword that heals, and it's like the demon who's very like destructive and sort of all about taking life gets a sword that heals, and the other one who's more caring and who is more whatever gets the sword that destroys, and they inherit their swords from like their fathers or whatever. So it's like that energy. Her sword is one that heals, but like I didn't see all of Inuyasha. It used to come on Adult Swim, and I watched it whenever I caught it. But he does end up developing feelings eventually. He does end up softening eventually, and he ends up using his sword. He's when at first he's like, "What am I gonna do with this? A sword that heals, a sword that mends. Like this is useless. Why would I ever?" But again, eventually he meets someone and he uses it, and that person like opens him up, and it's all this and it's all that. It's also interesting. So there's the whatever with the King of Swords we saw before he came out, we see how what he incorporates, I guess. We see what he incorporates to get his sword to take on those same light, fiery characteristics as this Queen of Wands. With the Queen of Swords, the situation came out first. And then we see her here. There was another card that did the same acrobatic trick when I was shuffling the deck, but it didn't turn over. So I don't know which card it was. So it's like we don't necessarily, it didn't come out for me to pull. What inspires the Queen of Swords to use her sword in this way? How does the Queen of Swords suddenly know that her sword is also capable of healing and germinating and propagating life rather than ending it? There's something about this goat leapfrogging off the back of these birds, though. And maybe it's like because it avoids death here from that fox or whatever. I don't know. These are getting very weird. Not in a bad way. I guess instead of weird, these are getting very like, I don't want to read this, but I'll try to get a card. I'll give it 2 shuffles. I kind of want to respect the fact that it didn't come out. And maybe I just should. But if I give it 2 shuffles and nothing comes out, then it's easier to just be like, yeah, okay, well. Oh, gosh. Well, apparently she wants to. Oh gosh, the acrobats. Oh. Ah! Oh, gosh. So many cards. The first time, only one card flipped over. So, who is this? The Nine of Wands went flying over onto the Queen of Wands and the King of Swords because I had the Queen of Wands, King of Swords. It went flying on top of those two, which is the fox from this Seven of Wands, but it's the fox in color. See, where is he? That guy? It feels like that's this guy. See, but something about the fox, it makes me think of the coyote in a way that it might have been like we were never in any actual danger. It's one of those, I don't know if they have it in other countries. I don't even know the name of the show here. I think it's like, What Would You Do? And in the show, they set up this confrontation. Like there are paid actors who act out this scene, and then there are real people who supposedly, under the premise of the show, there are real people who don't know that they're just acting. But they cause like this huge thing, and it's like the premise of the show is to find out would bystanders, would average, regular, everyday people intervene in the situation, or would they just like mind their own business? And so I don't know if it was like set up to be like a, you know, almost like a test, I guess, where it's like, something happens. The Queen of Swords sees something and she discovers that her sword can mend as well as sever. A card came out face down, which is the Page of Swords. And this came out before the Seven of Wands. Like it landed face down here, in front of the Seven of Wands. Oh, gosh. Which is interesting, because it feels like with this Page of Swords, it's almost like it was always something that the Queen of Swords, I don't even know if it's the Queen. Maybe it's the whole family. Hey, Steph, how you doing? Maybe it's the whole family of swords Like they find out that their swords are capable of more than what they thought they were. The King of Swords finds out that his sword can produce flames. The Queen of Swords finds out that her sword can produce life or whatever. His sword can fire, her sword can earth. I'm assuming there's a sword that can water and the sword that soars. But maybe it mega swords. I don't know. I don't know. But it's like these are messages that the sword can do more than what the Page of Swords would think the swords is capable of. We're receiving the message, but it's almost like without the situation, we don't discover what it is. When the King of Swords sees this Five of Wands, he comes into this knowing that his sword can be light. When the Queen of Swords encounters the Seven of Wands, she discovers that her sword can produce life, or it can mend and heal and not just sever. I wonder if this is why it's why the King of Swords was sitting in a space of observation, but it feels like it's also why Judgment was with the World card. Oh, that's the end of my time. Oh gosh. I really didn't think I would be on here for an hour. Oh gosh. This isn't sponsored by there we go. I got pure white screen pulled up on my TV so you can see me. I didn't feel like using the purple light today, even though I could have. And so with this Nine of Wands, it's like we have these veteran paid actors that act out these scenes to. It almost makes me think of Inside Out. I don't remember why. I don't remember what they were trying to communicate. But it makes me think of Inside Out when they were trying to break into the dream. I don't even remember if they were trying to break into it or if it was just like on their way to wherever they were going. But it was like the part of Inside Out when they were in like where the dreams are made. And we saw that there were like actors in the dreams and they act out whatever that Riley dreams about. And I forget how like it's determined that you're going to have a dream about this or a dream about that. But it's almost like that. Because it's like when we just had the information, we didn't really know what to do with it. I don't think the other video did that. I'm noticing the flicker in the camera. Hold up. I don't think the other video had a flicker. Did it have a flicker? Was it flickering? Can y'all tell? I just reopened the video and it started exactly where it started before. Yeah, see, this one doesn't flicker. That's interesting. I don't know if that means anything. See you later, Perry. I don't know if this means anything, but like this one, when I held the card up, I could tell that the screen was like flickering. Without it, I wouldn't have been able. Even when I looked at it, I couldn't really tell. But they say that like that's. I think they say it's something that can be bad for the eyes, or they say whatever for screens that like flicker instead of it being like a solid pulse of light. It's like with the naked eye, we can't really tell that it's flickering, but through a camera or through a mechanical eye, we can see that. But it's like, even if we can't see that it's flickering when we watch it, our brain and the way that it interacts with the eyeball, like there's a biological reaction that they're saying flickering causes even if you don't observe it, girl. I don't know. Anyway, should have ended this video 2 hours ago. We have the King of Wands. Most of, like, only one of these cards flipped over in the first shuffle. In the second shuffle, everything was flipping over and flying out and doing all kinds of craziness. I'm trying to keep these separated by the groups that they came out in. It's like 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 1. I think that's it. Yeah, that's it. Bottom of the deck is the Queen of Cups. Okay. So we haven't seen flickering screens. So should I have left it on the flicker? I was like, it was messing with me. I didn't like it. Here we see the Queen of Cups at the bottom of the deck. We haven't seen the sword that waters yet. I mean, the sword that waters can be on the table. I literally have 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 6, 7, 8 cards on the table that I still have to read. And it was like 1 card, 2 cards, 1 card, 2 cards, 1 card. And one of these cards had already flipped over from the first shuffle. We haven't seen the sword that waters yet, but here's the queen that waters. I think the Queen of Swords might have went big brain. Because I'm clarifying, this came out for the Queen of Swords. Like, what led her to know that her sword can mend and heal as well as cut and sever. And the Queen of Cups is at the bottom of the deck. But it's almost like Earth. Life is a composite element. Earth requires air, water, and fire for it to grow and nourish, or for it to grow. The first card is the King of Wands, who still has his light wand, who's very fiery, almost autumnal. They're almost reading like autumn leaves more so than flames. And we see his crown. Wait, he is the animal. He's a lion. I was going to say we don't see his cat, but he is the cat. The King of Wands has become, it's almost like the King of Wands has merged with that rather than keeping it aside like the Queen of Wands has. Because for her, like, the black cat was outside of her, but he is the cat, like man beast. And it's like, there are different situations where it's like different things are favorable, right? You don't necessarily live every day as the beast. Some days you got to be beauty. Then the next 2 cards, it's the Hanged Man and the 7 of Swords. The King of Swords was observing the Hangman and the Witch's Tarot yesterday. It is. Aw. Thank you. I was like, and it was like, what is happening? Could y'all see the flicker? I'm gonna watch it back. I'm assuming you could see it because I could see it on camera. And I was like, I'm pretty sure I wasn't doing that before. Yeah, this screen doesn't flicker. I feel like it's so crazy. It's so wild. And to think that I was ready to throw my whole life away. I was ready to throw my whole life away. Only to live a little bit more, to work through, to heal, and then find out, oh, it's a simple procedure that we can do real quick. And it's covered by your insurance. What? And I wasn't working at the time, so I was on the insurance, the Medicare. I don't know, Medicaid and Medicare. Anyway, yeah. And I'm like, oh my gosh. I'm glad I didn't. I'm glad I lived a little bit more and braved a lot to reach the point where this doesn't have to be the reason. Anyway, we see the Hanged Man and the Seven of Swords. This, the Hanged Man yesterday came out with the King of Swords and the Witch's Tarot because when I saw the Hangman first and the Double Major's Prime Used Tarot, and the Hangman was out of the tree, so I didn't know if the King of Swords had cut the Hangman down. Maybe that's another like it's fine. We don't got to go in on Odin. It's fine. These two are. If I read this as a story, it's almost like there was a trap that was set for the hanged, the trap that was set for the Seven of Swords, like one of those rope, like the rope on the ground, and then you step in it, and then it lifts you up, and it's like tied to some tree, the tree of the Hanged Man. There was a trap set for the Seven of Swords, and it feels like this tiger was a defender of this land back here. But the tiger got stuck in the trap, and then the Seven of Swords got away free. All of the animals feel like paid actors, though. This might be projection, so engage your discernment tenfold. Like you should have been using your intuition and discernment this whole time, but this next part really take with a grain of sand. But the tiger feels like another paid actor. Like it was for the Seven of Swords to believe that they got away with something, to believe that they had outsmarted whatever. What in the werewolf is happening? Because it almost feels like the tiger. It's like in the King of Wands, we see the King of Wands in like this man beast form. More beast than man, but not completely a beast. But the tiger is the King of Wands in its full beast form. And then the card after that is the Six of Swords. See, I should have just left that Queen of Swords alone. I should have known it was like convoluted and complicated when the card just like remained face down in the deck. After the Six of Swords is the Ace of Swords and the Chariot. Here's that same Ace of Swords that came out with the Three of Swords in the beginning. And these two look much like that Three of Swords, but there aren't three swords. There's no like bad blood or heartbreak between them. With that knowing, we can move forward. And then there's the moon with the wolf, the dog, and the lobster, the two pillars in the moon. And then the last card is the star. And then there's the water, like the star pours out water. The Queen of Cups is the bottom of the deck. Okay. I hope you have an excellent whatever whenever you see this. I hope you're acting in a all that you wish to experience your reality. I will not be keeping this video up. It will be promptly deleted. Oh, I should have got some water. I had about half of a mouthful of water. This Seven of Swords is taken on a ride because it's Six of Swords, Ace of Swords, major, major, major. It almost feels like there's an energy of avoidance with the Seven of Swords. So, like the King of Wands, the Hanged Man, and the Seven of Swords, it almost feels like there was a space or an opportunity for us to embody lion, to become man beast. Um, there was an opportunity for us to like for our to some kind of soul expression. Fire is of the soul, but it feels like it's where the soul like burns from with I wish I could animate it. I wish you could just like I wish I could project the images to you from my brain. But it's like one of those if you've ever seen like Sailor Moon or like one of those animes where the characters like transform. It's like there's this fire from the inside that comes out and like transforms the person into this man beast. And it's almost like there was an opportunity that was supposed. No problem, Steph. I am barely here. I'm like, oh gosh. I was joking, by the way. I was kidding. We're gonna attempt to continue. Um, it's like there was a situation in the past that was almost supposed to trigger a certain like soul level response, or it was supposed to get us to see something about ourselves. It's almost like it was, but because of the triggering nature of the thing, it's almost like it didn't, like we needed to get triggered down here because this is like the fire table of our soul. Like there's the fire and then the water and then the air and then the earth, and we have to break through earth and air and water to get to this fire down here. But somewhere probably in the earth, but maybe in the earth air phase, like we ejected from that trigger. Like there was hangman, there was something that we were supposed to see about ourselves, but because of the nature of the thing, we got ejected before we got a complete understanding. Two swords are left behind. We take on the five swords. So it's almost like again, it almost plays on that energy of like we sort of see that something becomes like it holds the energy of the five of swords. We walk away from it thinking that it was supposed to defeat us. But there was something within that that was supposed to make us stronger. And that's like that was the true purpose for this trigger was to get us to go down to the fire. And that's what the King of Wands and the Ravenous and Dracon Tarot, that was the last card, that was the final card. And it was like Dracon is diving into the depths of his fire, and that's like that was the thing that we were supposed to find. But it's also not for us to take on more than we can bear. So if we didn't go all the way through it, that's fine. if you would have went through it and had an absolute mental psychological breakdown, if the darkness of that night would have been too dark to the point where you wouldn't have been here with me today, don't feel bad that you got out because you're here. You know what I mean? And I don't know if it necessarily would have I guess I don't want it to come off like you missed your opportunity. You should have went there. No, because if you couldn't have handled it at that time, no. You might be strong enough to now. But it's like you move on from that. And as you move on from that, it's almost like um the part that you excavated in this process, it didn't get covered back up. So in that, you actually made something a lot easier. The work that you did in that arena was not in vain, is not in vain. Because then you move on to calmer waters. I want to say to smoother shores, but maybe that's just like they're not as jagged out front or something. And there is a certain like levity that, because like what was excavated, there is something that like you get the reward from that. You get to move on like more free of that, more healed. You get to move on more healed. And then one day is this Ace of Swords and the Chariot. This feels like a certain knowing. And again, with the Page of Swords, these were all things that the divine was sort of hinting at. Maybe you were seeing symbols, maybe you were seeing synchronicities, maybe you were feeling the resolution of this thing. And the Queen of Wands is the pre high priestess. It's the pre high priestess here because it's almost like you were shown the end result. You weren't shown the depths of the thing that you would have to go through to get to that happily ever after. You know what I mean? But it's like, you don't necessarily lead a conversation with, are you ready to do the hardest work of your life that you've ever done and to feel like you're not being compensated fairly at all until you've been there, rejected for promotion time after time after time. But like 20 years later, finally you get recognition. Do you want that? Who in their right mind would say yes? They're like, no. No, I don't. But they're just like, oh, you're gonna make this much, or you're gonna get this promotion, and you're like, oh my gosh, like but they didn't tell you that everything that you'd have to go through before you get it. And this is the last two step, like 1 2 1 2 1 1. With the Ace of Swords, there's some knowing and some willingness to move forward, something that moves you forward. So maybe the Hanged Man and the Seven of Swords was like a dark night in the past, or like the dark night that triggered you into like healing, because that's what like the Six of Swords is, the healing journey that happens as a result of this energy. Like we get out of it and we're like, whew, then we start to heal. At some point in that healing, we come into a new knowing, or the divine drops some kind of revelation to us. We get some kind of revelation. And then we set out on this next phase. The first thing we encounter is the moon. So we're still not told why. But by this point, again, this is why, like, the stuff that you excavated, the stuff that you healed, the stuff that you worked through, it serves a point and it serves a purpose, because now you can be led and guided through this unknown space and not like lose faith. Not to say that it won't be challenging. Oh, wow. But like this feels like open doors for some reason. Like these two, like there's no water here. You see the animals plainly. And maybe there's like it's a certain level of trust, or it's a certain level of faith that's built up by this point that you can continue moving forward. And then it culminates in the star. And it feels like the star is down to the water. And so by this point, the Queen of Swords has excavated through the earth and the air, has made it into the realm of water. I guess that's where the moon is, the realm of water. And then she encounters this Seven of Wands situation. And it almost feels like something about this Seven of Wands provides the fire. That's why we have the paid actor in the Nine of Wands. Something about the Seven of Wands provides the fire that the Queen of Swords is still yet to necessarily discover herself, and it puts it all together. Because again, for me specifically, I don't know if it's the same for everybody or if you'll find it in the book, but it's coming to me and I'm going to read it how it's coming to me. Life, earth, is a result of water, fire, and air. You need the soil and the water, you need a gas exchange, and you need light in order for plants to grow. So the fire, it's almost like the fire itself, before the Queen of Swords, or before us, because King and Queen, masculine, feminine, it's still like one. Well, I don't know. Because the King of Swords already learned how to ignite his wand. But maybe it's like externally. There's something about, and like both the Five of Wands and Seven of Wands have very like contentious energy. Maybe it's different. I don't know. Something about this situation, maybe that's because, so with the Five of Wands, it only inspired fire. But maybe it just like, because with fire, if you don't have a steady supply of air, it'll like die. So it's like the fire like surged or the fire flickered here, but then after that it kind of died down. And then something about this fire with the paid actor coming in this time to make it even more, because it feels like, she's the goat. So it starts to like threaten her, it starts nipping at her. The King of Swords was like removed from the situation. She's not necessarily removed from the situation, but something about this inspires the fire, or it's like this fire interaction. It draws out the fire from within her that tried to come out here much earlier before it was ready, but it did enough to again start digging through the earth and the air. And it digging through the earth and the air, it's like that's when we sort of come to peace with our past and the things that have happened to us, in some part at least, and the progression of how we lived our life. That's like when we heal through the earth. And then when we start to heal through the air, we start like healing those limited beliefs and mindsets and, cutting out the stinking thinking and everything like that. To the point where we're starting to, it might have completely dug through the earth and the air and exposed itself to the water. So that again, with this Queen of Cups, now we can start to see beyond our present circumstance. Now the divine starts to show us through feeling and through dream and through prophecy or through prophetic space, this where we're going to end up. And we start to head in that direction. We start to navigate the water as we're on that healing journey with that Six of Swords. And again, like once we make it through that, then the Ace of Swords comes in. We hop on the chariot and we go through the abyss with the moon card. We go through the dark water, and the dark water is at the bottom. And what's under, and that's Ron and her digging for the geothermal vents. That's the King of Wands. There are some spots on the ocean floor that's connected to the fire where you'll see the magma starting to come up, right? And that's like this, where this fire comes in. And then something within the Queen of Swords in this process is able to put all of the elements together so that her sword becomes one of life. So we don't even see the sword of water. The sword of water is like completely, I didn't see it as I pulled it here. And it's not to say that there won't be some journeys or that there aren't those with the journey where it's like you learn to incorporate fire and then you incorporate water and then you incorporate earth or whatever. Again, that's how I view earth. And I already know that the way that I view the element of earth is not universal because earth does some stuff for some people that it don't do for me. And I'm like, what? I didn't know earth could do that. It's just not my elemental makeup, my elemental soul genetic makeup. And so yeah, so I feel like this completes, like this is the reason why the Eight of Pentacles came out in reverse with the Magician upright, because there are elements that we've learned to use, or there are elements that we're learning to use, and we can incorporate those elements so that it doesn't all have to be done within the realm of earth. Like the Queen of Swords can use her life-giving sword to create these eight pentacles. Like now it's eight pentacles that the magician can magic because of the knowing with this Queen of Swords that you don't have to put in the physical toil and labor to create. And that's another thing that came out. Yeah, I don't think I didn't put it in the community post, but it was like with the King of Swords observing all of this and with the Queen of Swords also participating in the observation, when it comes to magicianing, it's like, you know what fire does, you know what water does, you know what earth does, or you know how earth grows. Because the only thing, again, that we saw from earth, we went from the Four of Pentacles being reserved to the Page of Pentacles being open. And when we're open, we receive. And then earth, like life, sort of propagates itself in a way, as long as you're open to the elements. But it's like, so the King of Swords, because he observed everything, he's able to supplement this for that. So it's almost like, if you have a plant that grows in this climate and it takes this number of days roughly to for it to sprout, it needs this much water, it likes its soil to be that moist, and you want to take that plant and grow it somewhere else. Now you have all of the knowledge to like replicate the conditions, and you can even change the conditions in a way that the plant might like even more, so it grows faster, bigger, better, healthier, hardier, produces more, whatever. And it's not anything that had to be done genetically to manipulate that. It's all based on the circumstances, it's the environment. Sometimes it grows, or sometimes while its native and natural environment is producive to its growth, conducive to its growth, if you tweak the environment a little, might actually be more suitable for that. It's just like the seed wasn't planted in its ideal environment. That seed can also be us, right? We've grown and survived and maybe even found ways to thrive in whatever environments that we found ourselves in throughout life, even if we just survived it, right? But like, just because we survived or just because we grew, just because we thrived, doesn't necessarily mean that that's the optimal environment for us. And with the broken wheel of fortune, with the world and judgment and the Ace of Cups and the wheel that came out today, it's like we can navigate to, or we can find ourselves in an environment that's a lot more ideal, and we will grow and flourish and be abundant and happy and healthy in ways that maybe we would have necessarily thought possible. Some of that environment can be external, kings. Some of it can be internal, queens, or you can break it down by element. There's like the environment, and then there's the situation, and then there's the circumstances. Which is also why, again, it's like it's very important to not, especially if circumstances have changed. If the environment has changed, or if circumstances are changed, like be open to things working out in a different way. Circumstances in this case is like more internal. Like if you healed, if you've grown, if you've matured in some way to the point where like certain things don't affect you anymore, or where you allow yourself the liberty to speak up when you always would have been silent, or to dare when you always would have been a little shy or whatever. If you've changed internally, and or if the environment has changed outside of you, there's nothing that necessarily demands that the outcome of a certain situation be the same, that things play out in the same way. So be mindful that we don't make them play out in the same way, because the wheel has been destroyed and we're building a new one. We can recreate the same world that we just left. We are powerful and capable enough, and our choice to do that will be honored. The divine will respect it, because, what's the point of having choice if it isn't? But I guess some people don't believe we have choice. In that case, use your own intuition, discernment. In that case, I guess pray that you end up in a better position. I don't know. If you don't have choice, or if your choices don't matter, I don't know what to tell you. But I guess besides, everything is working out for your greater good. You know. Interesting. Okay, I feel like I got there. We'll take them. Who are you? The Seven of Wands again. I saw the World and some other cards. The World, the Fool, and the Three of Swords. Ah, the World, the Fool, and the Three of Swords. The Three of Swords would be the thing that prevents us from fooling into this new world, or from fooling out of an old world that we didn't really like and into a new world that we'll enjoy. The Three of Swords is the greatest blockage. But like I said, when the Seven of Swords originally came out, the Seven of Swords is leapfrogging off of the back of these birds. These are the two birds in the Three of Swords. So this Three of Swords is no longer going to be the hurdle that prevents us from stepping into these new cycles. And I'll just leave it there because, love that. Bottom of the deck is the Queen of Wands. It's the Queen of Wands instead of the Queen of Swords that came out originally with this. I don't think it really matters. Because the Queen of Wands is the one who owns it. The Queen of Wands owns her past. The Queen of Wands owns her past, but she also owns her present. She's the one that knows that her past doesn't define her. So it's like you can bring her past to her if you want to, but that just goes to further show the magnanimousness, the magnanimity, if that's a word. It's like it just goes to further show the height of her accomplishment. She's like, yeah, I used to be there. Yeah, I used to do that. Yes, I used to think like that. And of course, I've done some things that, the version of me now would never do. But that's who I was. That's where I was then. I did better. I healed. I grew. I became. What did you do? And it's not one of those, what did you do in a comparative sense? But it's like, if you are going to bring my past to me in an attempt to humble me or tear me down or do whatever, yeah, I did that. But that's not who I am anymore. Where are you? Why are you bringing this to me in this way? Because if you were on your whatever, you wouldn't be doing this to me. You wouldn't, like, you tearing me down, even if you were to tear me down, that doesn't elevate you any higher. In your mind, that might put you at a relative height, but in reality, you're still as tall as you were before. I can shrink, but just because I shrink don't make you no taller. She can own that. She owns the past. She owns the Three of Swords, but that's not where she stops. She continues to grow. She continued to grow beyond that. And that's why it's like it's that energy that's going to help us fool into this new world. The Three of Swords doesn't stop anything anymore. And it's not to say that it won't be a challenge. It's not to say that things won't be painful, but it's not going to stop us. Not anymore. So enjoy your new world, enjoy your new life. It's almost like you being, I don't want to say you being here was the prerequisite for everything that you are yet to experience and achieve, but it kind of is in a way. But it's only in the way of like it required you to be where you are now. It required you to heal the things that you healed for you to receive the things that are coming, for you to even believe that more was possible. That's why it was required. That's why it's a prerequisite. Because again, we have choice, we have free will. You can have a winning lottery ticket and never cash it in. You can have a winning lottery ticket, cash it in, and then spend it on a whole bunch of stuff that aren't any of the things that you said to the divine you wanted to improve your life. And then after you're done having fun, why am I pulling this? Nope, I'm not. Nope, we're putting this deck. Maybe it's just to show you this Page of Pentacles. I am not busting out a new deck right now. Oh, yes, I am, because I need to put these cards back. Okay. Oh, I forgot. I was like, whoa, we're shutting this down. We ain't going no more. No, thank you. Strength was at the bottom of the deck. It was it was the Lovers. I couldn't remember. The Page of Pentacles was with the Lovers, and Strength was at the bottom of the deck. Oh, the Star. Again. What was I saying? I don't remember. Something about us allowing ourselves. Oh yeah. We get so caught up in carnal pleasure, and we get caught up in again, that's like when the ego can be more of a distractor. We get caught up in carnality to the point where we blow all the money and then we're left with nothing. We're left where we started, but a lot not necessarily better off. Okay. Final card from the Witch's Tarot. It's the Hierophant. Key of Silver, Key of Gold, something, something, or so I'm told. Ooh. Well, there's our Page of Pentacles again. Here's the Three of Pentacles. The Three of Pentacles, again, clarifying the Magician today, it has a context of utilizing every tool at your disposal because it all helps you move forward. Realizing that. It's also, though, if you know that something is going to overpower, if you know that something is going to be invasive, leave it on the table. Don't pick it up. Don't use it. Just leave it. If you're not at a point in a position where you can utilize it beneficially, leave it where it is. Because it's better to not be like completely derailed. Again, it's for us to take stock of like where we are. And we don't do ourselves any favors when we rush ourselves or when we try to take shortcuts. Sometimes if you take a shortcut, it might be worth it. Sometimes if you rush, it might work out. But they do say haste makes waste. And it's like if it didn't, then you could have taken your time. Anyway. Six of Swords, Four of Wands, Page of Pentacles. It almost feels like a formula. Like how much fire, how much air, how much water, how much earth. Almost like baking a cake. It's almost like pastries. And how you can use the same ingredients but in different proportions to make a different kind of pastry. The Hierophant is interesting though. I'll get this card right here. This one. Queen of Swords with the Hierophant. I will take this one too. Who was that? The Four of Pentacles. I think that's lavender she's holding. To clarify this Hierophant. Yeah. I'm back in focus now. Oh my gosh, it's almost been 2 hours. It's fine. I don't know why I really thought I was just gonna hear. Hey, I'm on here for like 10 minutes to clarify to see what this Magician and Eight of Pentacles in reverse is about. 2 hours later, but again, it doesn't feel like it was necessarily for me to spend less time. even if I grew a little facetious at some points, or waxed a little facetious to the point where I was like sort of saying the same thing over and over. But some points it's almost like some points need to be made. And in that same vein, it's like if there is a lesson that you go through multiple times, it may not always be wise to shame yourself for experiencing again. It just might be something that you didn't pick up. And sometimes there are some times where we may be introduced to something to prove to ourselves that we've grown by making a different choice, by making the healed choice. And that's it. Because there are certain things that we need to have confidence in ourselves about. And like, how do you build confidence in your gifts, skills, and abilities? Are you the type of person that builds confidence by repeated successes? Or are you the type of person that, like, once you figure it out, you're confident in your ability to do it? Because if you're the type of person that might need, I got to prove, I got to do it like 3, 4, 5 times before I'm confident enough to keep doing this. So, keep watching me, keep observing me so that, I know that, I'm doing it right. And again, it's not a judgment because it's whatever you need. Ultimately, at the end of the day, it's like it doesn't do you any good to like have you win the lottery now if you don't even do the things with it that you truly want to do. It's not about anybody else saying that you wasted your money by doing this or doing that. Because some people win the lottery and they do exactly what they wanted to do with their money and they're satisfied. But if you want something, it's to like make sure you're in a position to do it. And you winning the lottery is you getting your manifestation. If it hasn't come to you yet, maybe it's for a reason. Maybe it isn't. But at the very least, maybe you're capable of being a little bit more wise with it now. Who knows? And maybe that's what this is. With the Four of Pentacles, this could be relative stubborn. And both of these energies can be fairly stubborn, though, to be honest. And then you're also dealing with the Hierophant. So, it may take the Hierophant, I don't know, anyway, take it as it resonates for you. This could also be seeing the deeper meaning behind how things played out. Because it feels like it becomes this Hierophant level of integrated spiritual knowledge. Like the High Priestess is just like, I'm going to blow your mind with the spiritual insights I'm going to reveal to you. But you're like, oh my gosh, whoa. But then you step out of her presence and you're like, okay, well, how does this apply to my day-to-day life? Like, how do I use this information? You know what I mean? The Hierophant is the one who actually like uses that information in the day-to-day life. So this is like learning to see beyond sort of the 3D facade, or learning to dig a little bit deeper in the surface to come into whatever knowledge is for you to gain and to utilize as you go about your day-to-day life. And maybe it will help you serve in whatever way you choose or want. Maybe it won't. It's however you want to do it. It's whatever is for you to do. You have choice. That's what's important. But, anyway. So, with that being said, thank you all for being here, spending time with me. It's been great. It's been much longer than I anticipated, but it's fine. I have an abundance of time right now, and I give it gladly. I hope you all have an amazing whenever you see this. I hope you're acting in alignment to make all that you wish to experience your reality. I hope that you allow yourself I almost want to say grace, but I don't like grace. I want to say grace because it communicates a certain feeling, but it feels like the word isn't necessarily right, but I'm not going to try to fight for it. I hope you allow yourself the grace to be where you are now and to be proud of where you are and to be proud of all the things that you've achieved, even if you aren't necessarily where you want to end up. I hope that if you take a look back on your past, you can see the things that you are to be like that you should be proud of, to the point where you don't allow it to work against you, or to the point where you aren't so easily removed from your position of power when it comes to moving forward in the future, to the point where you are less accessible to the shame from like others. And, it's one thing to know that like there are things that you did in your past that you want to do differently. Like I personally would say that's healthy. But it's another thing when you allow those mistakes of the past to keep you from having success in your present and to move that forward into the future. But ultimately, more than anything, I hope that you find whatever you need and that you're open to being able to learn from it, utilize it, whatever. I hope you get where you're going. I hope you get where you're going, is what I want to say. And I'll catch you next time I catch you. Again, thank you all, Holly and Kirsty and Steph and Janelle. And I want to say Codes of Harmony because Threads of Harmony came out, but I don't think I saw Codes of Harmony today. And David. And if I forgot somebody, I'm so sorry. But yeah. And, I guess I'll see y'all on the other side of this eclipse. I don't know what's happening. I honestly wouldn't mind if, but I guess I take it back. Because if these are really truly leading us to pondering and spiritual meandering to the point where we see these deeper insights within us, hopefully again, like I'm not the be all end all. Whatever I read for you, use your own intuition, discernment, guidance, knowledge, and wisdom, and allow the divine to show you further, to show you more, right? Like I can potentially lead you to the pit and you may feel that I push you into it, but you taking stock of your environment when you're there, you maybe even digging a little bit deeper, like that's stuff that you can be like guided through and walk through if you ask for it. Sometimes the things that are revealed are dark or scary or bring up a lot of emotion, and in that case, again, if it's too much and you leave now, the work and the healing that you've done is not for nothing. And when it is time for you to come into those greater and grander insights, when it's time for you to come into, because it's not even about just the insights, because that knowing did happen, but then there were the situations, those situations where it's for us to apply that knowing. And then in the application of the knowing, oh my gosh, my sword is on fire, or oh my gosh, my sword is growing ivy. It can heal and repair life rather than sever it and end it. That's all stuff we learn in the field with applications. Like being Sagittarius is good. Having that big brain philosophy, deeper knowing, spiritual insight is amazing. But when it's time to Gemini show up in the world and like put that knowledge into like action, and again, sometimes it's easier, sometimes it's harder. That's why the high priestess can be a little like, and even the Hierophant can be a little like, I hope you allow yourself the practice and play of seeing how it works for you, I guess. I don't know. Anyway, I'll catch y'all later.